This week on Queen's Conversations, join your hosts Lucia Dragos, Nuran Omar, and me, John Collins, for the first in our series of programs titled Neighborhood Notes. Each episode will highlight one of the unique communities in this our most diverse borough. Today, we'll visit Astoria. Our guides include Bob Singleton, Executive Director of the Greater Astoria Historical Society, Sonia Milonas, founder of Give Me Astoria, Dev Bandaran, Artistic Director of the Astoria Performing Arts Center, and Rana Abdul Hamid, District 12 Democratic candidate for Congress. And now, here's Queen's Conversations.
Queens is well known as the most diverse borough, formed by a quilt work of different neighborhoods, each of them distinct and unique.
They are true communities based on shared experiences, values, interests, and cultures.
Our first virtual visit takes us to Astoria with our guide, Bob Singleton. Bob, can you tell us a bit about the early days of Astoria?
Well, Astoria was founded by a gentleman named Halsey, who worked for John Jacob Astor. And he would go home on a steamboat from Wall Street, go around this peninsula on his way back to Flushing, and he admired it. He said, this looks like a beautiful place, and he got in touch with some of the people that live there. That's the Hellgate there, the Hellgate Bridge, and the pool in front. And they decided to form a community, and the name was Hallett's Cove, named after an early family that had lived there. And he said, well, look, I work for John Jacob Astor. He's the richest guy in the country. Maybe I can talk to him, since we've named it after him, and he can give us some money to help us get started. So he went to Astor's mansion, which was actually just near where Gracie Mansion is today. Astor could actually see it. And he said, I'd like to, we're going to have a vote here. We're going to name this community after you. Would you like to give us a donation? Well, Astor was the first millionaire in the country, but he was also a very, very skinflint. He really didn't want to spend money on anything. He was a real miser. And he looked at him and he said, well, your older brother tried the same stunt. He had Astoria in Oregon, and I didn't give him any money for Astoria, Oregon. And he says, but I'll give you a few $100 for Astoria, New York. So they built a school with it, and I went ahead and renamed the community after John Jacob Astor.
Interesting.
So you are the founder of Give Me Astoria. Tell us a little bit about that and what makes Astoria's food scene so attractive, unique.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on this wonderful show. Sorry about that. I didn't catch the last part of the question. It cut out a little bit.
She was asking about the variety of food in Astoria and where it came from.
So Give Me Astoria started.
What makes it unique and reputable in your eyes?
The uniqueness is that I believe that we're the mecca of food. I mean, Astoria, when it comes to food, I've traveled a lot around the world, and I haven't seen so much diversity when it comes to food and culture as there is in Astoria, especially when it comes to the authentic. We pride ourselves here on authentic food. So on one block, you can experience the best of Greek food, the best of Egyptian, Mexican. If you're looking for brunch, donuts, bagels, let's not even start about the pizza. It's very diverse. We love our food here. I could say that we are probably the foodies of New York City. There is always great specials that are happening around. The owners, the chefs, they're very much involved with the community. The community is very much interested in what's coming out in terms of food, because it's very diverse.
That is phenomenal. Deb, what is the mission of Astoria Performing Arts Center, and how has the center contributed on the cultural scene of Astoria?
Great questions. Thank you for having me as well. So Astoria Performing Arts Center, or as we like to refer to it, is APAC APAC, has been around for 20 years. We are in our 20th season now. And we have occupied a couple of different spaces in Astoria. And we really strive to bring off-Broadway professional theater to this area of Queens, and continue to do that through new plays, revivals of musicals, and also we have a large array of programs that serve both seniors and students in the greater Queens landscape. And basically we really just strive to be a bridge between, really wonderful theater programming for the area, and also provide for opportunities for people on either side of the age spectrum to be able to either find their voice on stage or come back to finding their voice on stage if it's something that they have taken a break from in their lives.
Hey, Bob, we're talking about stages and performing. One of the most amazing brands and internationally well-known brands in the musical theater business is the brand known as Steinway. And Steinway has a relationship with Astoria, doesn't it?
Oh, my heavens, yes. I was fortunate enough to have known, as a member of the society, and a benefactor was Henry Z. Steinway, who was the last family member to actually run the business. And on so many different levels, it is quite a privilege and honor to be part of the family at Steinway. The logo, that Steinway logo, is the most highest valued logo in the world. And if you go to a concert or you hear a recording of music by a professional, something like 95, 99% of the time, there's a piano. The piano is made right here in Astoria. And the really fabulous, another dimension about this is that many of the people that work at Steinway are native Astorians, the people who've grown up. I think of one fellow named Wally Boot, who's well known, grew up within a couple of blocks of the factory and showed up one day. They gave him a broom and he went from there. He went for every job, the assignment they gave him, he mastered it beautifully. And there's a really interesting relationship between the arts community and the artisans at the factory. And that is that they both relate to each other. An artist will tell you that they would not be there if it wasn't for the artisans. There's an ongoing dialogue about improving the piano. And the artists will come out to the factory and actually give performances. We're giving a lecture. We're showing it's actually on the Jane's Walk for Queens. And we have actually a slide showing the 5 Browns at the factory. Now back to Wally. Wally, the great concert artist, would come to Wally and they'd say, I dream about my instrument doing X or doing Y. And Wally would sit there and tinker with it and then come back to the artist. And the artist would say, yeah, this is exactly what I'm thinking of. And here's Wally. I mean, here's this guy, graduated in high school in Queens. And every great concert artist around the world knows and respects him. And he's not exceptional. He's very much typical of what you find within that factory. So I think it's something that everybody that lives in New York and Queens, and especially in Astoria, should be very, very proud that our name is on the map around the world for many reasons, one of them being that factory, that Steinway factory.
Mm-hmm.
QPTV did a 4-part series on Steinway, and we had the chance to go inside, and it's a pretty fascinating place. And the boulevard is named after Steinway, correct? after the
Yes,
factory.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. I've been giving
And
the tours there for about 20 years, and I've taken thousands of people through the factory. There's a waiting list a year long, and you have
Wow.
people from all around the world making a pilgrimage here to Astoria, and then they
and
always
how
go out there at
Astoria
lunch.
originated? It's oh,
Hmm?
and speaking of names, how did Astoria had the name Astoria? What was it before?
It was called Hallett's Cove after the family that, and the Halletts actually had land here in Astoria up until about maybe 40, 50 years ago. They had a big funeral home, so a lot of older people remember Hallett's Funeral Home. They moved out to Long Island, but I've met them and I've had I've talked with them. There's a lot of tradition in this community, a fabulous tradition, and we have every reason to be proud of Astorians on so many different levels.
But honestly, you are correct. We should be really proud to be Astorians if you're from Astoria. Sonia, I actually wanted to ask you a question. Have you seen a notice in a shift in the last 10 years when it comes to the Astoria food scene? Of course, there is cultures that were specifically in Astoria before in the last 10 years, and now culture has changed. Have you seen a change in the last 10 years or 5 years?
Yes, in the last 10 years, I've seen a shift. Actually, I moved here in about 15 years ago. So when I first arrived here from Australia, it was like, to me, it just felt like there was a lot more Greek influence when it comes to a lot of the restaurants. Um, but in the last 10 years, I can say that there's more diversity. Um, there is more of a shift with, you see more Mexican, more infused foods as well coming through. There's also more of your fine dining that's come through. But in all, it just feels like a melting pot of all different types of foods. And I feel as though everything that opens up in Astoria is very new and trendy. So there's like the wave of the vegan food right now, and Astoria like started that a couple of years ago. And as all these old restaurants that have been in the area, they have options for like vegetarian, for vegan. So we're really much influenced by everything that's happening in the world, and you can find a little bit of whatever. If you have allergies, if you're in the mood for traditional Mexican, if you're looking for traditional Lebanese food, even the food trucks that are that are on the streets that have that ethnicity to it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like even family businesses, the youth are taking their families' businesses and making it more trendy and more hip spot for it to be the new hotspot in Astoria. So I agree.
It's more trendy. I totally agree with that. And also like the concepts that start in Astoria when it comes to food, I feel as though we're very knowledgeable, like in terms of residents when it comes to food. I feel like we are like very big critics. So for example, if anyone's coming in and is opening up a new restaurant, like this month we're going to be covering in next month's issue, we have 7 restaurants that are new, up and coming, that are going to be opening. So Astoria residents are your biggest critic, because I believe that with the food culture around us, we do have a high level of standard of what good food is. So we're the first ones. Absolutely.
Well, um, let's go to our first video. I had a chance to interview Rana Abdul Hamid, who is a Democratic candidate for Congress, New York, District 12. And we had a little chat about her experience growing up in Astoria. So let's have a look.
Queens is so special to me. Astoria is so special to me because Queens and Astoria are home. It is one of the most diverse places in the world. I grew up here in a neighborhood called Little Egypt. It is where you find fresh pita bread and women speaking Arabic and the mosque community. And it's where you can find, community that may feel so distant right here at home and feel connected to your roots. And that's why I really, really loved growing up in Astoria. It's a place where you could find so many different cultures and cuisines and languages, and so many. The Astoria Park is so beautiful, and I just loved growing up here because of that.
You're first generation immigrant. Did growing up in Astoria, and particularly Little Egypt, like you mentioned, kept you connected with your roots?
Growing up in a community like Little Egypt really allowed me to stay connected with my roots, especially in a period growing up in a post 9/11 context where there was so much shame associated with being Arab, with being Muslim, and being able to stay in community in Little Egypt. I found a sense of pride where so many people looked at me and thought I shouldn't be proud of where I was coming from or where my family came from. And I felt safety and security when so many people were looking at my neighborhood and seeing us, as outsiders. And I find that across Astoria, right, and across Queens, that so many immigrant communities create safety for each other in these pockets where we could speak languages that remind us of home, where we could eat food that reminds us of home, and where we could simply feel safe, oftentimes when that's not necessarily afforded to us in all contexts.
Bob, Rana was mentioning the Little Egypt community, and there are many different demographic communities over the years that have come to Astoria. At one point, there was a surge in German immigration, and our friends, the Steinways, had a role to play in helping establish a community there. Do you tell us something about that?
Well, there's a couple of things here. I'll talk specifically about the Steinways and in general about the waves of immigrants that have come through here. The Steinways themselves, the head of the family, Heinrich Steinweg was the original name, suffered a lot of political abuse in his home country. People talk about when they come to America, they're afraid that people will look askance at them. Well, sometimes you're living in your own country, and people will disagree with your political beliefs or disagree with opinions that you may have. And even though he was a skilled craftsperson, they did not give him a license to make pianos because he was a socialist. And that was verboten, to use a German word, in his own country. When one of his sons came to New York, there was a revolutions in the 1840s in Germany. One of his sons came to New York and said, this is a place for us. This is a place for our family. There are people here that speak German, are German, but there's also a tolerance within this community. That we cannot find in our own home country. And why don't you come here? Well, that's all Heinrich needed to hear. He just picked things up, brought the entire family here, and within 10 years, he was a millionaire. And his principles not only created a piano, but his principles helped create New York City as being the cultural capital of the world. Because when they built that piano, they said, there's no place to really play this to get the kind of acoustics we're looking for. So they created a place called Steinway Hall. Steinway Hall attracted artists from all around the world. And New York was put on the map because of its international population base and its international reach. So, the Steinways really are part and parcel of what New York City is all about. And it's always been an international place. It will always be an international place. And it's really the harmony of all the various peoples coming together and learning how to work together, how to relate to each other. And that's really the strength of what our city and our country is all about. New York, America starts in New York City.
Mm-hmm. I love that saying.
Deb,
Go ahead, Lucia.
Deb, Astoria Performing Arts Center was established 10 years ago. What changes did you see in the cultural scene, and especially in the last year?
Sure.
And moving forward, where do you see it going?
Sure. The company was founded in 2001, so just about 20 years now. I
mean,
was
20
not
years.
with the company. Sure. I was not with the company when it started. I started with the company in 2014. And, I think that we're really on a path of continuing to evolve and grow, both within the community and within the greater New York City theater world. We really want to be in dialogue with the specific neighborhood that we're in to do shows that shine a light on issues in the world, issues in the world of social justice, issues that deal with topics that are important today and that reflect the wide the wide range of folks that you find in this area of Queens. And I think that over the past couple of years, we have really been trying to do that even more. And I think that more and more people are starting to know about us. And we're grateful for opportunities like this to spread the name of the company so that you know that you can find really, really wonderful arts in this specific area. And during this past year, which was really hard on the art scene, as everyone knows, it really allowed us to find new and hopefully more creative ways to reach out beyond our screens to be able to connect with our viewers. We are looking forward to being able to invite people back into a theater soon, but this past year was an opportunity to continue, in dialogue with the neighborhood and with people who have been fans of ours who maybe haven't been able to get out to Queens, and hopefully they will be able to now. We actually have a radio play coming up that is going to launch next week called Stuff, that is written by a resident of this area. So we're really excited about that. And people can continue to follow us at www.apacny.org.
Sonia.
Phenomenal.
Yes, Sonia, I get the distinct impression that Astoria is getting younger and younger. What are the kinds of things that young people are doing in Astoria now?
It is. We're getting a very influx of people from all around the country that are coming and moving into Astoria. And it's diversifying more and more. One thing that I have noticed is with the influx of younger people coming and moving to Astoria in general, just to work in the city, that I really love is a lot of them reach out to us and they work within the community, which is amazing. So we have so many non-for-profits that new people are preserving something that's kind of like a history, so to speak. So we've had things in the past that non-for-profit organizations and things like that, just in general. But what I've seen is people that do move in here, they really want to help, and they reach out to us, whether it's photographers, writers, whether they're helping out the community with food drives, clothing. So that's one aspect of it, that they really do get involved in community. Other things that people like to do is they love eating, they love going out, they love enjoying Astoria Park, comedy shows. There is such so many options right now, even though we're still in a pandemic, but there is so many things that people can go out and see and do. And we cover a lot of that in our magazine, which comes out every month. So we on our website, which is givemeastoria.com, we cover things to do, we cover a lot of food, we cover a lot of community events. Our magazine is distributed in a little over 100 locations all around Astoria. And I'm happy to share tomorrow we're gonna this is an issue that's coming out tomorrow, and we're covering the best of 36th Avenue. We do that each month. We take the avenues and we talk about what you can do, family fun, brunch ideas, drag shows. There's a lot of places that do that as well, that have that, trivia nights. So
We're running
Yeah.
out of time.
Lots of things to do. Lots of things
Nora.
to do.
Lots of things to do.
We only have just about 3 minutes. I just wanted to speak about gentrification. Astoria is being known as the new Manhattan. So I wanted to know your opinions of how has gentrification changed within the years in Astoria. Bob or Sonia, if anyone wants
And we
to
have
speak.
2 minutes left.
Well, one of the things I can say is there's some parts of his story that I hope never change. And we talk about restaurants, and you really know how wonderful a story is when you go to another neighborhood and you just don't have the variety you have here. But one place that has been really near and dear to our heart has been Bohemia Hall and Park. And we were involved in saving that place. The whole craft beer, all that kind of stuff really started here in Astoria with Bohemia Hall. So when you talk about gentrification, there are waves that happen continuously within any community. But beyond that, there are roots within a community. And I think that what we need to do is to look at these roots and to say, this is what Astoria is all about. And when people come here, we change, but they change too. And that's a successful community, to take the best of all worlds.
Let's go quickly to the video of Rana, and she shared her story and her experience growing up and in Astoria, again, with gentrification and her opinion on that. So let's just quickly go to that.
I grew up actually within the context of experiencing gentrification. My father owned a small business deli grocery here on Broadway, and he was really proud of this halal grocery shop because it was like many small businesses, a mutual aid hub. You know, people would come in if they wanted to sell sweets that they wanted to make extra cash, or if they were looking for housing, or if they wanted to talk about what's going on in the neighborhood. Like, this is what it was, the kick it spot for so many people. But obviously rising rents and poor policy that protected small businesses and protected our rent controlled apartments failed my father, failed our small business, and we eventually lost our small business. And I'm seeing that not just happen, 10 years ago or something when that happened to my family, but also again right now, both before the pandemic and after the pandemic. And for me, when I think about change that happens in neighborhood communities, I think that there's a lot of opportunity that change can bring that is good, as long as we're ensuring that we are protecting and the affordability that communities have to offer for working class families, for immigrant communities that don't necessarily have access to many resources, to continue to thrive with their businesses, to continue to have affordable housing and not have to struggle to survive. And that's what's really important for me, is to ensure that Astoria can continue to be for everyone, just like it was when I was growing up.
Great. We have a minute left. Well, actually a few seconds. So thanks to all the guests. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on Queen's Conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.